They told that story. They said all the men died at the Alamo, but see what they didn't tell you. And the scholars are now starting to come clean. See, Santa Anna wasn't all that bad. See, Santa Anna brought 2 regiments of African troops out of Veracruz. See, we were so far behind that veil, we forgot that it was Negroes in Mexico. We forgot there were black folks down in Central America. We forgot there were black folks in the Caribbean and down in South America. There were more blacks in Brazil probably than there are in the United States. We forgot that slavery was extensive all across this whole hemisphere. And Santa Anna brought 2 regiments of black troops out of Veracruz, and they fought at the Alamo, and they also fought at San Jacinto. And when the Alamo fell, you know, they say all the Texas men died. Well, that's not true. See, that was Joe. Joe Travis was in there too. He was Travis's slave. And when Travis died, Joe hid. See, I was over at the Alamo doing some research, and I went over in the archives, and I was helped by one of the docents in the Alamo, the Daughters of the Texas Revolution. She said, you need to see this newspaper clipping. And she showed me a clipping of the newspaper from Galveston around that era, and it said that Joe was the one that was the eyewitness to the fall of the Alamo. See, Joe said when Travis died, he said, hell, I hid. He said, I was through fighting. He said, when the Mexicans stormed the fort, he said, one of the Mexican colonels said, are there any Negroes here? And Joe said he was scared. He said, he said it again. He said, are there any Negroes here? He said, here I is. He said, you free to go. We have no war with the Negro. And Joe came out of that rubble. And he took Mrs. Dickerson and the rest of those women, and they walked down to Gonzales, but see, they had to pass by Luling, Texas. They had to cross through Ateen, Texas to get to Gonzales. I just had to put that in there. You see, Joe is the one that got with Sam Houston, and they took him over to San Felipe de Austin. And when they got him over there, they took him up to Old Washington on Nebraska, and it was there that he gave an eyewitness account of what happened. He said, David Crockett didn't go down swinging, knocking folks out with old Bessie. He said, he got caught. And they ran him through. You see, you get a different story when somebody else is telling the story. You see, even when the Civil War broke out, Texas was right in the thick of things. The last 3-star, I take that back. One of the last 3-star Confederate generals still fighting, even after Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox, was a 3-star Confederate general named Edmund Kirby Smith. His headquarters during the final phases of the war was at his cousin's plantation called Alta Vista. Alta Vista now is known as Prairie View A&M University. You see, but the last 3-star Confederate general was an Indian by the name of Stanwatt, still fighting up in the Indian territories. And he was leading Confederate blacks, Confederate Indians, and Confederate whites, an Indian general. Y'all need to learn about Stanwatt, because he fought a lot of black troops up in the Indian territories. And them brothers out of Kansas and Iowa, they were fighting even before the brothers on Glory were fighting. Them brothers was fighting in 1862. And there was those guys that even after the war ended, they came into Texas. When they came into Texas, sometimes as a black police force and a black militia, because you see, when the war ended, the Confederates were going to wait and gather there at Alta Vista there in Waller County, and they were going to start that war all over again when Jefferson Davis got there. And in Texas, we read about Gordon Granger landing at Galveston Island on June 19th. But we didn't get the word in Waller County to August the 25th, when General George Armstrong Custer and his cavalry troops came there, and at gunpoint, they made them turn us loose. But when they turn us loose, there was a law that says that there were vagrants. If you were a vagrant, people could pick you up for being a vagrant. So the black folks that were turning loose from those plantations in that Brazos River Valley and across Texas, some of them went off and left. But many of them had to gather up the children that were still on the plantation. Some of them weren't even their own children. Somebody's children that had got sold off, they had the children. They had to gather up the women folk, and some of them weren't their wives because their wives may have been sold off, but they gathered people up. And when they went out on the side of the road, they had to hide from the night rider and the paddy rollers. They had to run off in the woods and live in the swamps because people were going to pick them up, and if they caught them for being vagrants, they put them in prisons, and then they started that convict lease system so they could lease them right back to those plantations. And then you come in that Brazos River Valley, the only plantation that was turned into a university was Prairie View. The rest of those plantations were turned into prisons. And most of these kids from Austin, when they go to prison, they're going to send them prison farms in that Brazos River Valley. And you can start up there by Naval and go on down to Rocheron and Sugar Land and all down through there. And they're going to be working out there chopping them same fields that we were chopping back when we first came in here. And when they got them in there, they make sure that they break them down. They make sure they got raped by some of them goons that they had turned out and made fools. And they come out, they so twisted. They don't know whether they men or women, where they coming or going. And they say, well, they going back in? Yeah, they going back in because their mind's been messed up. And we ain't dealing with that problem. And they come back and they give their women's AIDS. And they're dying. The black women are the ones that's lead with AIDS. We got to address that penitentiary. There's some nasty stuff going on down there. And we got to stop it. I'm going to start wrapping this up because I know I'll be here all afternoon. As people behind that veil, we had to deal with all the ideas that came with bondage, even the idea of our color. See, growing up in Luling, I was considered black. Sometimes folks would make fun of me. We had people that were blacker than me. Call them black Latin, right, John? Call us all kind of names, and some of the folks that didn't like the hair because nappy hair was bad hair. My daddy was a barber, so men that come in the barber shop on Saturday, they put that conch in their head. And some of them didn't know that stuff had lye in it. And that lye getting them scratches in your head. And some of them be sitting in that chair just waiting, trying to wait to get under that water so you can wash that mess out. And women, I could come home from school and I could smell that wild on pressing oil, just heads frying because mama was in there putting that straightening comb in somebody's head, trying to make that hair look good. Like white folks have good hair. And some of them didn't like their skin. They used that Ultra skin tone cream. And some of them didn't know how to use it. Some of them put it on their face and their face be all light, neck and ears still be black. Just all messed up. None of y'all did that. This is how twisted we got behind that veil. Even in our education system, we had to fight just to get decent classrooms. You see, there was a conference held at Cape Pond Springs, West Virginia in 1898. And they met there for about 5 years straight. And the people that convened were all white men. There were people from the Peabody Foundation. There were people from the Rockefellers. And they all met there. And they started saying, how are we going to educate this Negro? See, that was the question after the Civil War. What do you now do with this newly freed Negro slave? How do you take somebody that heretofore it was illegal to teach them how to read and write? If they caught us reading and writing before 1865, they tie us to a whipping post and they just beat the hell out of us. And then when the blood coming down your back there, take salt and just press it in there. So you would never want to even look at a book. So we lived in a condition of legal ignorance. And if you count up from 1865, that's how long we've been legally reading and writing. And then they say, what's wrong with y'all? Hell, we catching up. The first kids that went to Prairie View, they say, you're going to college. It wasn't even nothing like a college. They had to teach them the basics. Even when you look at the minutes of 1898 at Prairie View, it would say something like the kids came there, they call them boisterous Southern Negroes. That's them brothers coming out of those cotton fields, cuss better than they can talk. Oh, this MF did, and SOB there. Many of them didn't mean nothing by it. That was just the way we talk. Say the S word. Well, move that over here. Well, I stole my toe. Some of us still talk like that. That's field hand talk. But that's all we knew. And we knew it like Bernie Mac say, black folks can say MF 25 different ways. If you say it one way, nobody never pay you any attention. But you say it the wrong way, you gotta fight.